Hey guys, Paul from Ashen here. New comic book day, August 3rd. Unfortunately, we're a little short staffed today. Jessica's feeling really kind of sick, not feeling well at all. And now we've lost half our audience. But yeah, we're going to plow through anyway because we're going to be here every week, whether she's here or not, whether one of us might be missing, because last week Tim was missing. He's here this week.
I'm here.
You can hear him off screen. So
Off
yeah.
the screen.
So we're going to get started. So, this week will be really negative. So, I'm going to start out with the one book that I really kind of liked. Kingpin 2 for the Civil War series. If you are following along, Kingpin 2 is an ancillary story going on with Civil War. We are gaining a lot more understanding of what's going on in the relationship between Kingpin and Janice, and who you've met in the first issue, which is basically the person that is keeping Kingpin off everybody's radar, keeping everybody from Ulysses, so that way they can do crime when they need to. Not a lot happens here, but you do see a lot of relationship building there. It's very good writing. I really like how things are progressing with Kingpin and Janice, and you really start to forget that he's kind of the bad guy. He still is a very bad person, but there's a benevolence about him, and that's one of the reasons why people tend to like the Kingpin. He's a very complex character, so definitely pick this issue up. Again, I've never been a fan of the art on this, but the writing is solid, and I'm very interested to see how this story goes.
Alright guys, Tim from Capes and Scowls and the comic book store, and I'm going to review Lady Killer number 1. Lady Killer had its own mini-series. I believe this is going to be an ongoing. It continues where the mini-series left off. Basically, your main character looks like the Avon lady, but she's actually a brutal serial killer for hire. And as a result of the first mini-series, which is great and you should pick up, she is on her own now. She's not working for any sinister group that gives her the hits. Now she's working for herself. The art is amazing, and it is still very brutal. This is not for children. There are people getting carved up into tiny pieces in this. And the appeal of it is she is so, like, 1960s housewife, but, like, clearly there's a sinister side to her that nobody realizes, except her mother-in-law, who figured it out at the end of the miniseries that she's actually a stone-cold killer. And the mother-in-law is not having it, so that is a part of the plot. What is different from the other one is now she's in it for herself. She works for herself. She is doing all kinds of different hits that maybe is a little bit more tricky. She has to clean up the scene herself. It's kind of lost some of the luster, I guess, because now she has to do everything because she's not part of a group. This book is amazing. You should pick it up, and I like it. So there you go.
All right, guys. Next up, Suicide Squad number 1 Rebirth. This was actually a pretty good comic. We are basically redoing the Suicide Squad motif. You are gaining a very first look at what the Suicide Squad is going to be. So, if you know nothing about the series, this is an amazing issue to look at. So I'd suggest you definitely pick this up. We have Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Boomerang, basically the main guys that you're probably going to see in the movie. We haven't seen Enchantress or Killer Crocker or any of the others, but this is the first issue. So we are introduced to Amanda Waller, who you should know is the head of Task Force X, and Colonel Flagg, who is basically the leader of the Suicide Squad. And he's the guy that kind of corrals everybody and makes sure they don't kill each other. It's a very good series. It's very well done. I really suggest you pick this one up. The art is beautiful, and the storyline seems like it's going to be doing pretty well. Suicide Squad is behind enemy lines in China. They're creating their own metahumans, and they have to stop it. So, again, Suicide Squad number 1, Rebirth. Definitely pick this one up.
Alright, well, I was told I had to do this book because it gets me super pumped to talk about Moon Knight. This book has been very confusing on purpose, where you don't know what's reality, you don't know what is isn't reality. You don't know what's in his mind. He is so fractured at this point. You don't know what's real. You don't know if there's a giant pyramid in the middle of New York, if he's fighting demons, if he's fighting monsters, if he's fighting orderlies, if he's still locked in this hospital. You have no idea what's going on. At the end of the last issue, which if you haven't read it yet, for shame, but as I alluded, something cool happens. Him and Marlene end up at the foot of the pyramid, and Moon Knight appears, the superhero persona of Mark Spector, and he says, "Well, that can't be. I'm Moon Knight." He goes, "Well, no, you're not." And they get into a fight. He actually stabs the Moon Knight, and it runs away from him. And he chases after him. He enters the pyramid, and what is really cool is every time he goes through like a door, he becomes a different personality. And they actually change the art every single time. So your regular art, right? And then this, right? I don't want to just show you everything for free, but like completely different every time. That was a nice touch, and I hope they continue to do that throughout the series. This book is still strange. You get to the end and you're like, I get it, but what's really real still? Are you pulling the wool over my eyes? This book was great. From an art perspective, it's really great. Very weird ending. I don't want to give away on here, but check it out. It does conclude the initial arc, and it heads in a very bizarre direction, if you ask me. But I wouldn't say it's a bad direction. So check that out.
Yeah. Harley Quinn, #1. If I could hurt this comic, I would. But unfortunately, it's a store copy. So that would require that I would actually have to spend money on this issue. And I refuse to do that. Rebirth is supposed to be a rebirth of the DC Universe. And yet this literally picks up right after the last issue of Harley Quinn. If you just watched the Suicide Squad review that I just did, Harley's in China. But no, she's in Coney Island, hosting her own benefit concert and hanging out with all the people and reintroducing you to the people that you've already been reading in the last 30 issues. I hate this comic. It's so bad. It was, like I said in the past, a knock that I have with DC Comics. They don't have continuity within their larger storylines. Suicide Squad is happening. Harley Quinn is happening. They're happening at the same time. And they're supposed to be on opposite ends of the world, and they're not. So if you liked the original Harley Quinn series, you're probably going to like this. Alien crash lands. He thinks cows are the dominant race, becomes a cow, gets slaughtered, turned into sausage, and that sausage is ingested by people, creates a zombie apocalypse, and Harley and her crew of misfits from Coney Island have to fix it. Another terrible comic that was added into it is Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo just runs through the frame. So yeah, it figures. Shitty comic interrupting a shitty comic. If you're a fan of the series, buy it. If you're not a fan of the series, do not pick this up. Let this series die. Pick up Suicide Squad instead.
Alright guys, my last review is a new Image #1, so buy that up, right? It is by Brubaker and Phillips, which once you hear that, you're like, oh, it's a crime book. Well, not quite a crime book. Kill or Be Killed by Image. This is the story. This was really good. I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't originally going to get this book. I might even add this to my pull list. Basically, it's a kid who is, and it jumps around a bit and you don't get the full story until the end. He is a troubled individual, and it starts off with him attacking people and killing people. He just puts on a mask and he's killing people. But when you go back and get the context of how this all starts, basically, he's severely depressed. He has multiple times tried to kill himself, and it's just so dark. And then he's in love with his roommate, and she is like coming on to him and making out with him when her boyfriend's not around. It's so twisted. But basically, things go bad. He actually tries to kill himself again by walking off of the roof. He falls, gets tangled in the clothesline between buildings. It's like a New York City kind of thing. And he survives, basically. He survives, makes up a lie that he's hurt. He goes to his room. He's thinking about everything. He's like, I am such a loser, and I'm so full of shock and awe because I just survived all this. But then again, I'm so happy I'm alive. I never realized how much I wanted to be alive. And he just wants to pass out, and all of a sudden, something you don't usually get with Brubaker, demons. You don't expect demons in your crime, real world, kind of a political thing with Brubaker. Demon shows up. He says, you owe me a life because I let you stay alive. Every month, consider this your rent. Every month, you find a bad person out in the world and you kill them. And that'll be considered paying your rent. And you'll be allowed to stay alive because I kept you alive. At first, you're not sure if this is real or not. It feels very After reading Moon Knight, I was like, God, is this all in his head? It's not. The demon breaks his arm. And you know it is not in his head. So, although maybe it is. This book is awesome. Because it's just written so well. And it talks about all the things that are actually wrong in the real world. And, yeah, he has to go kill somebody once a month. But it has to be a bad person. Or else. Weird. Get it.
All right, guys. Thank you for another week for the 2 or 3 people that are left after they found out that Jessica wasn't here. We really appreciate you guys. As always, subscribe to our channel, like this video. If you see fit, check out our Patreon page. It is growing, so we're really happy about that. And we'll probably be able to afford to get some new equipment. Obviously, another tripod, because if you see any of the outtakes, our phone is just falling over the place. But we definitely appreciate you guys. And we will see you next week. Hopefully Jessica's feeling better. And, yeah, have a great one.
Thanks, Mom.